if you look at the mill rate and where we've been, yes, it is a decrease, but the functionality of that is paying off Fund 38 and Fund 39. It's actually making a double payment in 39. And the reason I did that is to keep the mill rate somewhat consistent. Now, the board can make a decision, or the committee, which happens to be just the board tonight. The reason that we did that is not to use Fund 80 as the mechanism for the mill rate. What we're trying to do is use the payoff of 30, 39 to keep that consistent, okay? So if you look at this one, this is kind of the master tax levy sheet that you're gonna be asked to approve when it comes down. If you look at all this, and again, I'm not gonna go through, but a couple positives that I wanna point out that you'll see. Thanks to Jamie and how she has ran summer school and working through, we've actually increased our numbers from 38 to 42. That's a big number. To be able to jump that FTE, that's more funding for our school. So I want to say thank you to Jamie as she's restructuring some things. We were able to narrow some things down too and make some subtle changes. And I'm excited to see the changes that she's going to make in the future. One of the things, and that's a 3-year rolling average, so you're not going to see an immediate impact, but you're going to see an impact. The other thing that you're going to see is the valuation. I think we all know we live in St. Clair County, but basically we're considered, the eastern side or closer to Dunn. St. Clair County, other than, and I just learned this, we also often use St. Clair County. I know my time in Richmond, we were the fastest growing county in the state. Now it's Dane County with Madison and the suburbs around Madison. There are number one. St. Croix is not far with number 2. Taking all that stuff into account, here's our mill rate right here, 6.84 or 6.85. Okay. So that is basically how we get. And the one thing I want to point out here is this turquoise color is auto calculated. DPI data is in yellow. District data is in the pink. And those are the numbers that Deb and I put in. Questions? I do want to point out right here is what I'm talking about. Typically, and again, you guys can make the choice, and I would advise against it, but this is a double payment when it comes to Fund 39 debt. And the reason that that is doubled is to get this mill rate and put it to our advantage. If what Tim and Ron were doing, which hurt the district in my opinion, were they were trying to keep this number consistent, as you can see here, but instead of that 38 and 39, which is referendum monies that built the stadium back in 2012 or 11, sometime during that, is you could be making payments to pay off this bond. So in this number, if you took and cut this in half, which is roughly 600,000, this would bring it down to roughly about 5. Now, I would advise against that, and here's why. No matter what, rule number 1 when it comes to the mill rate is going to be try and keep it as consistent as possible, because when you start doing this is when it upsets the public. We all know, based on my first slides, we have a major problem when it comes to our facility. You can take taxes and lower them. That's your choice as a community right now. But knowing on the horizon, we are going to have to increase taxes because our building is not where it needs to be. Not if we want to continue our district. So what this is this is be able to pay off our bond faster. And instead of using Fund 80 and then having that money locked up and not being able to be used, we're using it in a purposeful manner. Plus, we get counted as aid. We get more aid based on this number. So to me, it's a win-win. But I'm not the one, the community gets the one to set the levy. So I want to make sure I explain that. Tax levy analysis. This will kind of tell you what our tax levy is, what we're looking at, where it is in terms of increases, decreases, etc. And you can see the numbers, they speak for themselves. Just a reminder, Fund 10 is our regular fund. Fund 38, that's where those referendum or non-referendum debt is. Fund 38 is the non-referendum debt. And I'm sure some of you knew prior, but that's where a district can go to, they can basically borrow up to 1 million without going to a referendum. We use this in New Richmond, same way, to build a stadium, but we got it paid off within, I believe it was 2 years. Questions? Okay, then we come to the tax rate. So again, when I send this out to the public, I'm recommending that our mill rate is at 6.85. So what does that do to the average taxpayer? This is where it would be. So the value of your home and what your estimated tax increase would be. I also, with the Baird model, it breaks it down into the municipality of our district, and then you can see where it would affect each municipality, which is always good for as we start to form relationships with this municipalities in our area. In my previous, I've always talked to each board president just to make sure that they understand, because they get the angry phone calls too. Any questions on tax levy? Because that is the one that you're going to be asked to approve, since there's nobody sitting in the gallery.
Is there any particular reason, or explain your reasoning behind, we talk about having a Fund 80 balance that we can't necessarily use for a lot of things. Can you explain your reasoning behind levying the amount that you chose to levy when we have a balance?
Yep. So basically, and you'll see it in another slide, but the reason that I feel very good about this number is numerous meetings between Deb and Beth, who runs a great program. Now we can run, Fund 80 is anything that is community-based. Now we do have other things that we need to address. And you might ask, and I get the question too, well, why'd you spend money on a weight room? Well, there's a couple of reasons. Ours was so outdated. And as we tried to take the open enrollment number and flip, we had to do some cosmetic things around here to try and basically entice people to either stay, because we lose 120 kids that are district residents and they go somewhere else. And we could only use that for community funded purposes. Now, this number, and basically my first year, I just went with 700 because I knew nothing about the books here because I just started. Now, basically, this number is what it takes to run Tiny Toppers, Hang Time, and everything associated with Beth's program. But you think of the numbers of families that we affect through that program, it's far and wide. That actually is really good. I'll give you just a baseline, and I have a slide on it too. But in Richmond, we had a called Tiger Pack, same type of thing. But we also had a community education program, and we don't have that here just yet. We also had an SRO. So those are other expenditures. But if you're looking, and again, there's a slide that talks about what other Fund 80, what Fund 80s look like in other districts. And ours was far and wide the highest. And for what purpose? And the answer that I got was, well, we were thinking of building, a separate facility. Well, again, we weren't using all of our space, which is why we did that space audit my first year. So to answer your question, Chuck, basically this Fund 80 is supposed to be an in and an out. And at the end of the time, when Deb and I do the numbers, when we get the data from Beth, because she's never really looked at her budget until we came on board. And now she actually understands, what does it take and so forth. And plus it's increased because the Tiny Tots is huge. How many babies do we have?
I want to say we're at 19 now.
19 babies.
Oh, 7 babies.
Seven
Sorry. In
But we're
8
trying-
now, we just added another one.
But there's a wait list of 7, right? I think that's what she told
She had a
us.
huge list
So
of 7.
I don't know if that answered your question.
I understand that that's the in and out.
Okay.
We have 800,000 roughly. Is there any particular reason not to make that, let's just go extreme, 0? And put more money into the one on number 38 or 39, and then pull down that balance down to 450 instead.
You could.
So that's what
You
I was
certainly
wondering,
could.
what your reason is
Yeah.
not to do that.
I think I told you when I took this job and was into it my first maybe half year, and actually I take that till Deb got on here. There's still parts of me that is still trying to figure out the best path forward. You certainly could do that to spend it down, but similar to the answer that I gave you guys and a community member about helping with Hinman Park, there's still things that are here that I think I would like to bring to you. Prime example is Jamie has requested, and I'd like to fulfill that this year at some point where we expand our playground to add some of the things. We have kids that we don't have enough swings. We don't have, there's just certain things
So
until
it's
our
gonna give us a
facility.
little,
Yeah, our facility audit, I think you'll start to see where some of those things on that facility audit, we can use Fund 8. And so until we understand that side of things, I'm not comfortable just relying on the fund balance.
gotcha, okay, thank you,
Yep.
that answered my question.
Okay, no, that's a good question, because I guess I haven't explained that part of you. I think the facility audit, when you see it next month, you're gonna be, okay, is there anything in this number, the 2.6, that we can use Fund 8? The answer is yes. It's gonna be limited, very limited, but there might be some creative ways that we can do that. Okay, let's go to equalized value. Basically, this is the part where we know that our local valuation of our homes is going way up. We talked about where our equalized calculation, how many students and how that breaks down and so forth. I think we all know this, and that's the biggest question you probably get, and I try to explain it the best I can to taxpayers. Does the valuation of my home, which went up 50,000, affect our taxes for the school district? The answer is yes. And I think we would all, again, you're gonna pay for it one side or the other.
So basically, this is the increase that even though we're decreasing our mill rate, is increasing our property taxes.
We don't, and that doesn't come from us, that comes from the state level. That's where those individuals come around and say, hey, Jordan,
Yeah,
your property was valued at 250,000 and now it's 350,000.
Right.
Well, what have you done? Nothing. You just sat there.
right. But in general, right, because our property taxes are increasing.
It's part of
even though
it.
we're decreasing our mill rate.
Yes.
It's not.
And so that's definitely as a board, and I send that out and not everybody reads it, but that is a response for you to have in your back pocket that, because they just say, well, it's the school district is making my taxes go up. Yes, but there's a calculation according to what that is. And if you use this, if you use this, I think you can see, this is just from 2020. And it's hard to explain to the taxpayer, but that's talk to your legislator. Unfortunately. All right, general fund balance. We just talked about this one. And this is, I think, the key for us to kind of live by. If you look at where we are, This is the year that I took over, and this is where we underspent by $1 million. And so that's where we're here, knowing that we probably have to go to a operating referendum at some point, just not knowing when. But you can see where we're at. And that's another mechanism that we can utilize when we think about when you have all the information on the table. When you have, the state numbers, which will be October 15th, when you have the audit, which will be in October, then we could start to really plan how do we want to attack some of those outstanding needs for our building. To your point, here's our policy. And if you look at our current policy, it basically just states, and this was our old policy, it was 15% of the budget. The sweet spot, I will tell you, is 20%, 3 months worth. You should have 3 months worth in your coffers or savings or whatever you want to say it to be able to get by. Okay, so you might ask, what is our revenue that we get as a school district? Because these are some of the things that, again, we don't necessarily control. So I broke it up into state, local, and federal taxes. And you can see the blue is local, the state, and then the federal. And I think you can, again, see that there's been some changes at the federal government. We actually went a little bit up from last year, but that's taken into account ESSER and some of these other things. That number is just going to continue to go down based on current administration. Local sources, state sources, federal sources, special education. The reason that I put a little emphasis on this is understanding that we have to transfer a large amount to cover our sped costs. And that's typical of every school district. The good part is this past year, the legislators increased that number to roughly 38%? 37, but there's a formula behind it. So we're just not there yet, but this is going to be a help based on the recent budget.
Is there a plan for increases of special ed reimbursement? Like
Uh,
it's 37 now, are they gonna, did they?
First year is 37, 38, and then the second year is 45. But again, it's not as simple as those percentages.
Could help.
But it's a help. Other districts, information, CISA, other revenues, et cetera. So you can go through that and see where all of our revenue comes from. Any questions on revenue? Okay, the other big thing obviously is enrollment. And we are seeing, and I actually had to change this because the way the reporting was done was not necessarily correct based on what was coming out of the previous accountant's office. So I had to redo this slide because it wasn't accurate. And again, where does this information come from? It's not me pulling, books out. This comes straight from DPI. The calculations, and again, these are final limit, membership limit rounded. So basically on the revenue cap sheet, these are the numbers that they use. Now, these are not necessarily butts in the seat because there's a calculation behind it, okay? But I think we could all understand that this was COVID. And that was an odd year for everyone. I could not go past or back prior to this because the data was not there. There was a slide that they've been using here for the annual meeting, but again, it wasn't accurate data. And it had nothing to do with Krista. It had everything to do with the number that she was given to put into the slide. Open enrollment. This is another one where, again, basically we started 2014-15 is where that gap started to really start to widen. And this is our goal based on, our goal is to try and narrow that down. When you are losing 600,000 every year to open enrollment, it's a big chunk. And so every decision we're making to try and make our school better basically will help this number too. Here's the lost revenue that we're talking about. In terms of 600, I apologize, it's not 600. We're right above, a little north of 500,000. We're starting to close that gap just a little bit, and it's going to take some time. These are big decisions for families.
Is there anything we can do to more proactively target some of those open enrollment?
Yeah, we're talking about, surveys. We're talking about other things. Some of it is just general common sense, like my wife works in Baldwin and there's daycare there. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. If you get some of the respondents, my brother went there and we moved and we want to continue. Those you can't fault. It's the respondents that we get where, it's the facilities or it's the education or it's, one of the more recent ones was, it's our science program. Have you seen our science teacher? He's probably one of the best in the state. He got a reward for it. So people put down anything that they want. And I have to sign off on it just because parents have that choice. And I agree with the choice, but some of the answers that I see, they're just trying to rationalize it in their head.
Yeah.
Because I'll put our science teacher up to anyone in the area. Aid membership. And again, this is the Wisconsin data. So if you look at this as used to calculate aids such as general aid, equal as, and you're going to see more and more of this, but again, legislators have often talked about, we have a problem with our funding formula for the state of Wisconsin. And this is why. Okay, so when we look at the budget, and again, so much thanks to Deb, the work that she has put in, the countless hours that she is here. I often have to just say, get out of here. And she won't listen to me. So, but she's also working on weekends just to get us to this point. I think one of the things that really has to be understood is, and I don't understand this side of things, where she keys things in. The side of the budget is properly coded within the Woofer system, which is the state system. And that's where I have no clue about how to do that. And she can rattle these numbers off like it's her phone number. I don't know how she does it, but she does it. Couple things that I wanted to bring up. These are unaudited. This is what I alluded to. In overall perspective, we overspent by 1%. And why was that? 40,000 and lower than revenue. 40,000 and lower than expected revenue. We had the past compensation, which is a huge chunk. Those were the teachers that were basically state law was broken and they were underpaid. We had to pay $160,000 to make that right. I commend the board for taking that, but there's your overage right there. So we would have been under. We also increased and did quite a bit of and I think we're seeing the payoffs in such a short amount of time with Mr. Keene. But we're seeing the payback when it comes to the CTE department. We committed $120,000 in equipment. And again, I think when you see the program, and even to get Mr. Narcis's viewpoint from his experiences, when it's really good for me because I'll ask him all the time, what do you think? And he's comparing it to where he came from and his years as a high school principal. And to me, that's valuable feedback. I think Mr. Keene's, where he's taken this department in such a short time, we're going to see the benefits of that continually. More equipment. There was an increase in open enrollment costs. That's a state number that is given to us. That is not our number. And then we had some other things that are coming into the fact. So this will give you an idea. Some other major budgets changes for this current year. Obviously, we saw an increase in sped aid, but overall, you're going to see throughout the state, most taxes are going to go up. We were one of the, if you basically take the state, we were one of the bottom quarter to actually get an increase. And why was that? Again, it's a whole formula. quite a few districts actually, and that was a good news for us. But when we got July numbers, we saw it. I was just hoping it was going to stay that way, which it was. We have not addressed compensation, but my recommendation coming up here after final numbers are in is 3% for professional staff increase and 4% for support staff. Now, that's just the starting point. You guys can do what you want, but that's going to be my recommendation. The reason for the change, because I like to keep things consistent, we have to do something with our support staff. We have to get them, not that they're so out of line, but there definitely is the cost of living from that wage. There's a big difference. And so that's the rationale. And we'll talk more about that. Probably one of the biggest parts that hit us this year was the 21% increase in health insurance. Basically, when you see this loss ratio of 294. So in layman's terms, how I told my staff this, what does this mean? For every dollar that our staff and their families spent, United Healthcare spent 3. As a business model, you would look like, no way, I want nothing to do with that. 1 to 3. So when we see this increase, which basically, it's a combination, but the district, takes on some of that brunt. That is a huge part of that. Deductibles, we had to make a change, but that was based on some federal guidelines, so that wasn't our choice. Health Partners was 0% in dental. Life insurance, we have a lot of work to do with Fund 50. We're still trying to figure out Fund 50, similar to the way we've approached Fund 80 and Fund 10. Fund 50 is our food service. And so that is not sustainable in its current factor, but it just was lower on the totem pole. And then we talked about these student fees just to, again, make things reasonable in terms of CTE, and then the computer, which basically has taken the place of either a textbook or a notebook. Any questions on these?
These are all accounted for in what you're planning for the budget. Right?
Yes. Yeah, these are all accounted for exactly how I just outlined. Except this is going to take some reminders. We have quite a few people that ignored this, but it's new. We'll address it. Okay, I'm not going to go through these, but it will talk about in detail what each expenditure is and how it goes about, and what category it is. So when I say Wolford code, the only person in here that probably gets it is Deb. And she's the only expert in the room. I'm not even this, but this is the part that, again, we couldn't be in the position we are without Deb, where getting things, when we spend money, it's taken out of these categories specifically. Unfortunately, we had an individual prior that was just taking money and moving it around with no rhyme or reason. And you can't budget that way. Plus, the auditors had a heyday with us this year. And again, who took the brunt of that? That was Deb. But what I will tell you is that she has a very good handle on things to be pulled out of the appropriate code. Meaning, if one of you board members in your board audit came to Deb or I and said, I want to know, what does it cost for building administration? What does it cost for debt services? What does it cost for co-curricular? I would trust those numbers now. Last year, I wouldn't. If she just started 2 years ago, I absolutely would not have trusted those numbers. And I can give you a laundry list of why, what changes were made. We had things being pulled out of various funds that we couldn't even put heads or tails on. With that said, here's the overall Fund 10, and we kind of talked about some of that. When you look at property tax revenues, this is the whole picture. And again, all of this data is actually coming from that one Baird model that we've talked about when I pulled up. It's basically that Excel spreadsheet that's basically on steroids. I mean, there are so many tabs, and that's where this information comes. Okay, this will talk about the future. I tried to break it down as best I could. Fund 38.9, Fund 46. Yes, we have taken Fund 46 and spent it down. There's been some positives. When I first got the job, the CTE project was going. That was a great move on your part, because that set the stage for us to try and build that program up. Fund 80, we've talked about. Fund 50, which is food service, and Fund 38, which is that $1 million bond. And again, this is the one that probably should have been gone a while ago. And that payment is, what is it, 67,000 per year? All right, here's another that encapsulates that. Fund balance, total expenditures, revenue sources, functions. There's a levy summary. And then Fund 10, and it goes into the Fund 27, how it's broken down. This one breaks it down between transfers, intermediate sources, federal sources, etc. So again, I'll let you go in, and when I have a budget update, I'd be happy to answer any of those questions publicly, or if you want to meet with us at any point, just let us know. Special projects, this was the one that I had to be reminded of. This is our Fund 21, which means our overall, all those investments that we've talked about and getting to the proper place. Packer land and all those that we are now feel very comfortable, plus we're compliant. This is also student activity accounts. This is also the Topper Partnership Plan, which I have yet to be able to address in terms of what we want to do with those funds. That type of thing. It's a large number, but that feeds a lot of opportunities for our kids and our staff. Debt services, there kind of shows you where we're at. Capital projects, food service, Fund 80. And then that's the all funds. And again, there's a lot more to it. Basically, once you sit down and you kind of look and start to compare, because I try to put the slides in as much of a common sense approach as I possibly could. Here's the one that I would encourage you to look at. This not only talks about what I've been talking about tonight. Here are mill rates for area schools, but I would also have you look at these tax levies for Fund 80. And again, most of them, there are some bigger ones, which I'll tell you right now, this was not me. I don't know what they were trying to do with Fund 80. But I think most of them, you will see that they're very low numbers. And that's, again, every school district has a little different story and how that mill rate's affected. If you look at right here, this is the non, and this is where you're basically Fund 38. That's the $1 million. And then these are your bonds, Fund 39. So I encourage you to look at those. It's a lot of information. And I know I see a lot of deer in headlights, but I'd be more than happy to sit you down and talk through any questions you have. I always say this too, if you get that taxpayer that calls you, please send them my way. That's my job to answer. If you're comfortable answering, absolutely, great. But if you want more of the technical side of things, I'd be more than happy. It's happened a couple times in the last 2 years, and I just said, send them to me. And I will be happy to answer the questions with numbers. And then I typically respond via email so that they can see the numbers, and then I CC the board. Any questions? Okay, from here, we will get part of the rest of the meeting, which is new business. And this is where we get to move on.
So I guess one question, getting to a point to adopt the budget, right? Oh no, I just lost it too. What was I gonna know?
I'll answer it this way, Jordan, because I think I know where you're going with it. So what you do tonight, the community does this. This is not the board. The final budget is not adopted until the October meeting.
Okay.
So we have room to make a variety of changes, which tonight I'm gonna talk to you about. Number one, we're looking at a bus lease. Number two, we're looking at some increased legal fees possibly. So what you're doing tonight is preliminary, very preliminary. And what happens is on October 15th, Deb and I always race to the office and we look for our email to be notified that the final numbers are in. We take those numbers, we put it into the cap sheet, the revenue cap, and then that's where it really starts to take shape. So what you're doing tonight is more so semantics because it's just preliminary.
Thank you for that, that helps a lot. But I remember my question now, was about kind of the debt services, right? And because we're doubling down on some of those Fund 38, 39 payments. So as we kind of hold over and spend our fund balance down, how much does that take our overall debt balloon down to the point where we need to go out and get another loan basically, right, for these capital expenses?
I would have to look, there's a certain tab that's on there on 39 to see, because I don't know off the top of my head when our bond actually expires. I think it's like 29/30 is where it expires, based on payments. The bigger one that we're looking at right now is the 38. So Fund 38, and again, those veteran board members, please remind me, I think it was the stadium. Was there anything else, Dr. Kaiser?
No.
It was just the stadium?
Yep, there was
Okay.
the one, yep.
So that was like, I think 900,000, and we've been only paying off 67,000. And so it's gonna take a long time, and that's where I think, again, you guys wouldn't necessarily have known this because you're presented this and it can be very confusing. What I can tell you is that debt, getting rid of that debt is kind of a priority. And so talking with Baird, that was their suggestion, also get rid of 38 debt. 39 debt is just gonna basically come off. But again, I think, you saw it tonight, we're gonna have to do something. The good part is that I think we can push operating referendum down the road a little bit. The other part is we have a bigger fund balance, so we can address some things and kind of get ourselves on the right track. Especially with the biennial budget being, again, solidified for the next 2 years. That's always a positive.
Right.
So October 15th and the October meeting is where you're gonna have the chance, and that's a 2/3 vote. So if you're not here, you need to let me know because we cannot proceed with the budget and we only have a small window to do that. But that is where, and again, if there are some conversations that we need to have to be able to get more creative, but I will tell you that Baird is kind of again, they're our sounding board. This is our goals. This is what they would suggest us doing. And her name is Debbie, which I don't know if you guys have met her prior. I don't think you have because you never had Baird. And then Marquise is our individual from Baird that we work directly with. And so this is not Deb and I sitting in our offices saying, here's what we think. We kind of lead that train, but then Baird helps us understand some of the mechanisms that we're thinking about. But ultimately, you're the decision makers. All right,
Okay.
any other questions?
I might be missing it, but how much do we have in that Fund 38? Or how much do we have to pay off yet? Off of that?
Uh,
I don't know where,
I don't think,
is it listed out anywhere?
yeah,
I thought I had the debt schedule in here and I have it back there, I could tell you about.
That's fine, okay, yeah.
But we're only paying 67,000.
And it's been since 2012?
You can. Thank you. We'll get to that number because I think it's important. Again, the next time we meet, we'll have a work session, but it's gonna be more so capital. But again, if there's some conversations you wanna have, we can certainly have a special meeting to talk more budget. If you think there's some avenues we should explore. But again, the recommendation that I have to you tonight is powered by the goals that you've talked about, things that I feel are trying to get us in a better situation, and then Baird, who are the true professionals.
All right, so next would be to adopt the 2025-26 tax levy as presented by the district administrator. If anybody would be inclined to do that.
So these next slides, so again, you can say as presented, but basically what we're asking for is the mill rate of 6.85. And again, I have slides in here to talk to that and what that is. So however you guys want to make, and again, typically it's not just the board, which I take it as kind of a compliment. I mean, we didn't pack the room. But yeah, you are well, including myself, I'm a district resident now too, but from where we're at, that's kind of the starting point. This is the last 3 years, 812, 743, and we're at roughly 683 from a rounded standpoint. But again, that's not the final, that's just the preliminary.
Do you want it stated at 6.85 or do you want it stated at 6.83 or 4?
I'm just gonna say,
What would
because
you-
this,
Like, what would you say?
I would say this, because this is the revenue cap sheet that is basically as up to date as I possibly can give you
Okay.
to right now. And this is rounded at 6.846, so I would go 6.85.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion to adopt the 2025-2026 tax levy as presented by the administration with a tax levy rate of 6.85.
So moved.
Motion made by Chuck, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Scott. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Motion carried. All right, resolution B is to authorize the school board to make temporary loans for current operation according to statutory requirements.
So for those that aren't aware, that is short-term borrowing. And short-term borrowing means that if we ever get into a situation where we need to borrow to make ends meet, and from my knowledge, it has been a long time since Glenwood has had to do short-term borrowing, just because of some of the way things are set up. So I don't see again that this being a need based on how we're asking you to approve the levy and what we have in all the other funds. But it's still a good thing to have.
Yeah, just in case.
So does this have similar limits to it, like our Fund 38?
So that's would have to be approved anyway. This is just saying that you're okay with it, because again, this is not, you're not acting as a board member right now. You're acting as a community member.
Right.
And so you're just giving the board, you're giving yourself the authority to say, yes, let's approve.
But we don't need it, right?
We do not need
We
it.
don't, in the past, we would have to borrow until our revenues came in, we would have to borrow up to $1 or $2 million.
Sure.
So we did have to do that for a while.
Yeah.
And then, with the way the finances and with, cause I think we had it when, Fund 10 of like $150,000, okay? Well, you can't really run anything when you have something like that, so we had to borrow it. Now we've got our Fund 10 up where it is, so it's been very helpful that way. It
Yeah,
helps us
Fund
get
10
by.
balance.
Yeah.
I mean, we would never have to be in that situation, but again, it's just good practice.
Is there an amount that we top off at?
No, again, you're acting as a community member right now, so you're just giving the board the authority to say, yes, you can use short-term borrowing, and then the board gets to decide. So when
It's
that.
really
date-
hard when you have to have multiple personalities.
I know.
Which role am I playing, Pat?
Well, I guess the flip side of that is we can be in the comments with 50 people, or we can be here now, so I'll take this. So again, you're a community member
This
now.
is, yeah, this is the
You're not-
the
you're not a board
community giving
member.
us, giving the board an opportunity to do short-term borrowing if necessary.
I would make the motion myself, but I don't wanna complicate things.
I'll make a motion then.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Jody. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. No?
You're a no as well? Okay,
None of you can.
Krista,
Scott and Jordan have voted no.
Sorry, the question was, can administration make a motion? And the answer is, none of these individuals can. I can, but I don't wanna complicate things, but none of these people can because they don't live here. Our reporter could if she lives in
Used to. Boysville.
Boyceville, so she can't even do it.
So it's all in you guys.
All right. So it does pass, yeah.
Yeah, okay, and then I have Jordan and Scott, no.
Correct. Good. Item C is to authorize the sale of school property not needed for school purposes. And this is just the ability for, like we did a bunch of stuff and we
Buses, I think.
sell something or desks or whatever, so you're just giving, was the community willing to allow?
And actually, this is just, like, this isn't items, this is property.
Properties.
This is land,
Land.
Land.
This is property?
yes. Yes.
Well, I just assumed it was encompassing of a
No.
whole different sort.
We have the ability as a school through the board to be able to do that. This is, for example, Spring Valley is going through this right now. They want to buy some land for an expansion of their bus barn. So again, this is actual physical property.
I haven't got.
Community member. Bring him in here. He walks away.
Say,
I'm coming here.
Sale of
She's like,
school
no.
property not needed for school purposes.
He's like, really, come in?
Yeah, we gotta watch.
Come and join us.
Got a while yet?
Okay.
I'll be waiting.
I will make a motion for resolution C.
All right.
This is Fund 38.
I will second that motion.
$9,000. And we still have 475.
Any further discussion?
Fund 38.
Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carried. Resolution D is to establish the salaries for school board members. The current Board of Education is board officers' annual salary at $25, board members' annual salaries at $2,200. Authorize $75 for board members participating in any school board or work session meeting beyond the regular monthly meetings. And authorize payment to board members on official district business for actual travel expenses, including room and board and a per diem of $75 per day when traveling away from the district.
That's not a change.
That is not a change, that is the same. That's the same as it's
Krista,
been.
on the board agenda, it says 2,000 for members and not 2,200. Not for his slide,
It's what's,
in the public content here is listed as 2,000 on our board agenda. His slide says 2,200, so is it supposed to be? I don't know.
On board docs or something?
25 and 22, I got it.
25 and 22,
That's correct.
so the actually in board docs.
In board docs,
No, it's 22.
I got it.
that's all good? Okay. All right, so is there a motion to approve resolution D?
I have something I want to ask before we get to that point.
So I'm just wondering if this is pretty standard across the board for all school districts, basically.
It varies, in terms of the total.
Mhm.
So.
And the per diems and that kind of thing.
Yeah, per diems, so if I go through, everybody, there's a survey out there of what individuals pay, per board. Sometimes every board member gets the same, sometimes it's broken up. The per diem is typically, yes, if there's an extra meeting, that's a pretty standard piece. If you go to meetings like WSB, et cetera, use school vehicles, you get paid for it. Those are pretty common items. The amounts is typically what varies. And again, you're talking about making a decision as a community member right now. So people would be looking at you and saying, this is what we feel is your salary or should be your salary.
If I'm not mistaken, a school district like Eau Claire, for example, they might have different committees that they would need to serve on and have more meetings. I think they probably are a little higher. Is that a false assumption?
They actually have a different governance model.
Okay.
Um,
They're a bad
so-
example then, but.
Basically, their governance model is their superintendent is the CEO and basic board president. And then they function there. But, I'll give you an example. The Madison School Board is looking to double theirs just now. And their suggestion was to 15 grand. And so, again, they were double, they were.
We're underpaid.
7,500.
But again, they would have more required of them as a, probably.
I would.
The only reason I ask that is
Maybe.
because currently the only community members voting on this are the school board members.
Yeah.
Right.
So I wanna make sure that we're pretty standard and across the board and there's no, I look at that from a business point of view, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all, the per diem, all of that. I just wanna make sure, because it's only board members voting as the community, that this is above board, this is standard and a reasonable rate for what we do.
These are the same numbers
Same numbers.
in my time, Scott, they haven't changed.
Okay.
That's a good question.
All right, so resolution B, is
Now's your
there,
time to get a raise.
I don't really want one. I think this is just fine. Unless we're doing like 50,000.
Right.
Until we get our open enrollment out number down, then we'll.
Sure.
Might look a little fishy if you're not. No, I think that's.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution D as presented.
I'll second it.
all right, motion's made by Chuck and seconded by Scott. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Motion carried. Resolution E is to authorize the reimbursement of school board members for actual and necessary expenses incurred when traveling in performance of duties. So this is like let's say I go somewhere and I purchase something that's let's say a program or do something and it comes back to the school. So I personally paid for it, they're gonna reimburse me for it.
To bring up some of these policy review questions, like a lot of these, I wanna say yes, but I know we don't have anything that's like a cap or a limit or anything, right? So,
You will.
yeah, that's what I think, in our reviews, we should be
Yeah.
getting to those
And,
points.
and that one again, I mean, there's not necessary expenses, if you travel. Again, if something comes up and you go to WSB and you take, we would have you follow our protocol, which means you take one of these cars. But let's say, all of a sudden, you take the car, it's out of gas, you didn't pick up a card, which we're changing the process, you fill it up, otherwise you're not getting home that night, we can reimburse you.
Yeah.
And we would anyway, but this just formalizes it.
Anybody want to entertain resolution E? Motion's made by Steve, do I have a second?
I can second that one.
Second by Jordan. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Motion carried. Resolution F is to authorize the establishment of accident insurance for students.
So we just reinstituted this last year, and I think it went over well with our community members. I will tell you again, this does not, if an individual gets hurt, this is not the first insurance that is taken. So the family insurance is the first, this is a second rider, which means it picks up anything that's after that. And the overall premium is roughly around, I think, 15,000. To me, it's money well spent to help our families because they're under our care, athletics, field trips, etc.
How often is that needed historically?
We just reinstituted, it was here a while ago, I
It's been-
heard, and then there was a while where it was out, and I've always had it where I always thought it was a good thing. And so we looked into it and the board passed it. I would say it's only used a handful of times per year, but those handful of times can add up very quickly to our local families. And again, they're under our care. It's not like they're at home. And so there's a liability piece to that too. So to me, in my opinion, it's money well spent.
Yeah, I was just curious.
When
how
I was
often
the
we use it.
nurse,
If it's one of those, it's
yeah.
like self-insurance where we can set aside funds for it and cover ourselves reasonably enough, but.
When I was the nurse, I turned the form over to them every time there was a problem, but I never heard back how often they actually followed through with
Yeah.
filling it, because we just had to do the form. It's up to them if they wanna.
We can pull
follow
it
through
if you want.
I'd just be curious to see it.
Okay. Anybody interested in proposing for resolution?
I move to approve resolution F.
Okay.
And Jordan will second. Okay. All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carried. Resolution G is to authorize the Board of Education to set the date of the 2026 annual school district meeting for Monday, September 28th, 2026 at 6 p.m. at a location determined by the Board of Education and the administrative staff.
So, just wanted to clarify, it used to be in August around here. I moved it to September. And the reason I did that is because we're constantly getting updated numbers. And if you look at some districts like Spring Valley, St. Croix Central, they have their annual meetings in July, which doesn't tell you anything. I'd rather have the information so that when the community adopts, there's not too much change. And so this is the latest that we could basically have this meeting for the community to give you the most updated information. So again, I just want to do some context when you hear some districts have theirs in July or August. Why are we having ours in September? That's why.
We used to go in July, then we put it to August to give us that little bit and then we're just a little bit later.
Is there any like concern, like if half of the board couldn't make it, that we would have to push it out another week or anything like that? Kind of delay with like what you have to do in October for the other one? You said, all 2/3 of us have to be
The
here.
annual meeting?
Yeah.
No,
No,
I don't
I don't
even, we don't even need you guys.
Okay.
To have.
Because you
the
said it was the
annual meeting.
latest you could possibly do it and that won't matter at all.
No.
I mean, you kind of need us tonight because we're the community,
Well.
so that's not true.
I guess I would be making motions to myself and, I mean, there are ways and you kind of protect, but yes. If you can't make it, it's not like the October where you need 2/3. And if the board isn't here, we'd have to cancel that portion and have another meeting. And there's statutorily, there's a couple of those items where you have to have 2/3 majority. And the budget is one. The annual meeting, there is not a requirement for that.
I'll make the motion to approve resolution G
Second.
and seconded by Steve. Is there any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. All right, new business. Right, do we wanted to read the minutes of the meeting at this time?
We'll read them before we do. I wanted to again, so you guys are it's fresh in your head, Deb has those numbers on 38 and 39.
Yep. So our current balances after at the end of calendar year are going to be on the big one, which we took out in March of 2013. The original, the Fund 38 was $995,000. And I wanted to grab the debt schedule because we're only paying like $6,000. It's not gonna be paid off until 2033. And the current balance is $475,000 at the end of this year. So the debt schedule, we just keep making those little payments. The other one, Fund 39, we took that out for $9,240,000 on June 1st of 2015. And that one we are making a little bit more substantial principal payments on, about $500,000. The current balance on that one is $5,555,000, but pay it off at that amount, it's not gonna be paid off till 2035. Paying it off at that much per year. And if anybody wants to see the debt schedules, I've got the payment on the screen, but I've got it's in the detail, which is how much principal and interest were paid each year. I wanted to grab this one because it really shows you how long that one for $995,000 is drawn out.
So with doubling the payments then, you didn't add that in there as a payoff of 2033.
Well, it just depends, those are things that we need to think about. What I will tell you is that, again, I don't feel comfortable making a recommendation now because I want you to go through the audit. I think what you will see is that by underspending $1 million 2 years ago, where our fund balance is, if we had flexibility with 38, which we don't, we could get creative and address a variety of things without going through a bond referendum. We're just not there. So again, I think we can get, there has to be some discussion on what that looks like. How can we maneuver? I wish we had more flexibility with 38 because that is a tool. That's why it's there. The fact that you approved a referendum and for good reasons, science classrooms and some other things in 2015, they needed to be addressed. So again, I just wanted you to hear those numbers, but you can tell how far out these bonds aren't going to mature. There are some things that we're working on in terms of the call dates, and we'll work with Baird on that to get a lower interest rate. And then obviously it depends on the feds. We'll be constantly looking at that. In our previous district, we oftentimes save millions of dollars in that regard, just because of the call dates and so on. So we'll have more discussion on that because right now it's the annual meeting, but again, there are some good things, but there are also some things that we need to address.
So we do have minutes ready?
Yep.
You want to pull up your screen?
Yes, she did. Up there.
So what we're gonna do is start new because she's really excited about this. I'd rather have her do it and let Jody be focus on being a community member. So what she's gonna do is she's only gonna read the action items. So if you have any questions, and then we're gonna ask that you approve the minutes so that we don't have to come back in a year. But this is the new part where we're putting this right into board docs.
Yeah, the meeting was called to order at 6 p.m. There were 7 residents and 6 non-residents present. There was election of a chairperson, which was Dr. Lisa Kaiser. Want me to click and read? There was a first by Chuck Drexler, a second by Steve. All were in favor with the exception of Scott. The minutes, the annual meeting minutes were approved from September 23rd, 2024. Motion was made by Chuck and seconded by Jody. All were in favor. Resolution A for the tax levy was approved. Motion was made by Chuck, seconded by Scott. Resolution B, there's a motion made by Chuck and seconded by Jody, all were in favor. Resolution C was a second by Chuck, first by Chuck and a second by Lisa. Resolution D, there was a motion made by Chuck and seconded by Scott. Resolution E, there was a motion made by Steve and seconded by Jordan. Resolution F, there's a motion by Chuck and seconded by Jordan. Resolution G, there was a motion made by Lisa and seconded by Steve. We're looking to approve the minutes as read.
Any corrections or things that need to be stated differently in that? Appeared to be, it followed my notes. Good, all right, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the GCSD annual district meeting for September 22, 2025.
I'll make that motion.
Motion is made by Jody Mean, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Chuck Draxler. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carried. And next I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Motion is made by Chuck. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Jordan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. 7:32.
So
Take a little tiny break.
yeah, if we can take 5 minutes and then we'll start the regular board meeting right after. There's food over there for the board members and public too.
Yeah. I'll be the wrestling room. Oh, yeah, I gotta go. Little small circles.
Chris, so you want that back there? Oh, you can just start on that table, thank you.
Should we 4 minutes now? Yeah.
How do you survive the trips together?
We're right, Mom and Dad.
It's been a
We built the shed house just that.
since headphones on.
Oh, you know, 264, right?
Yeah.
Just all south on the-
Nothing new. Oh.
Not always,
It's a big
quite
green
often.
shed.
I only think. You're gonna
Very
make
nice.
sure.
There won't be any roof work over there.
Yeah, it is like a sibling relationship.
Yeah, it's kind of scary.
Okay, okay.
So, I don't know if you know where my aunt Ruby is, but.
Yep.
Kind of right kitty corner across from her. So, yeah, it's been nice.
I haven't been down here for a while, so.
Yeah, we still, we
Can I take a deeper ride on the side?
get a lot of side-by-side traffic, I think, for sure.
Yeah.
We've been back for a year and a half now, moved last spring. We were in Roberts, we were in Roberts for like 7 years. My
I
sister's
would
in
put it on a
Roberts.
salad.
It's only me.
Been nice one.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so it
Lisa's
is.
in River Falls. Ben's in like the Richmond.
This has been down there forever.
Yeah, she's been down there. But, yeah, it's fun. Got 2 boys now, so being close to mom and dad. Put them out of the house, they just run around and do
Alright.
And the two-legged boys.
Oh, yeah.
He's got four-legged boys.
Keep it that way. Yeah, they're fun. Don't get me wrong. You gotta enjoy them. I got a plan. Take your time. Don't let anybody pressure you. We have enough.
Oh, we got 14. Number 14
No, it's
came
cool.
on Friday.
It's fun seeing Ty, because all his kids go, mine's 3-year-old, he's a big 3-year-old, but all his kids are shoulders above mine. Yeah.
You got the twin 6-year-old.
Yeah. We're kind of joking. Get done early and get them out of the way. How are you guys doing? I haven't seen you guys.
He does grab a daycare for Ty.
I haven't seen it yet because I'm still.
Right. I work for him.
That's what Ty was saying, yeah, doing the book.
Supplementing and stuff with insurance.
Yeah. Do you use like drone inspections or anything? Yeah, I see a lot of people doing that right too.
They're cool. I don't have the software for it.
Yeah.
That's.
Like speaking.
You should be, you should go to the level.
The coach and I talk,
I know it's not, it's stuff that I'm screwed up. Even then, we screwed up. I was blinded for it, I was blinded for it.
I'll get around to it.
No worries, no worries. Okay, I'll call the school board meeting for the school district of Glenwood City to order. All right, roll call, all members are present except Derek Woolley is not here this evening. Item C is our board financial audit.
That was me.
Yes.
Yeah. So I guess I reviewed, so long ago, Deb, what did I review now? All of the CISA contracts, there were some quarterly CISA contracts that came up. So those are kind of interesting, good to get a little dashboard of those and kind of how CISAs support the district. Didn't seem like anything was funky there. One thing we didn't talk about was kind of during those audits, having some of those recurring expenses and getting an idea of what our annual, spend is, to make sure they're kind of in line as we start to see some of those actual CISA costs. Just to get an idea of the whole picture as well as kind of the month's spend when we see them. Other than that, that was about all of that. Some other random questions just to kind of get me a little more educated with school board finances, so.
Okay, thank you. All right, item D is the GCSD review of policy 0000.
So this is at the request of the board last meeting. And so, as you saw in my correspondence, the overall policies are still in production. And so, we'll go into each meeting with, so next month will be with the 1000s and so on. So we, through Neola, cleaned up the zeros, just so you guys could have an overview and it's not as daunting. Were there any questions on any of the policies that you saw?
There was one that had a template for student involvement in the board. That was kind of one of those check the boxes, and I didn't see it really populated. Is that something that?
That's when we'll, clean it up. Do you remember which one?
No, I just wrote notes and didn't write the numbers. I can go back and double check. It's not a big deal.
And again, that's what actually, if you saw that's kind of what the process is. So you have all these options and then you pick and choose. So because of where we are at, it's very rare that a district is in this situation where you're changing all of them at once. But that is the checkpoint. And again, we can readjust, but it's a good idea. Jordan made that suggestion last meeting where in chunks, you can go through them. So next month it will be the 1000s. But the zeros is kind of the overall, it's the board and it's the overall foundation of our district.
Yeah, I took some other notes and I can send them out, but a lot of them were around kind of our financial review process. And, we don't really have anything that guides our internal review of the budget monthly. And one thing that I think would be helpful, not knowing school finance very well, is having a good guideline around that. But then also in our external audit process, there's nothing that really drives us to cycle out our auditors to make sure we don't have the same auditor year in and year out. So I think there's some opportunity there to make sure that we get variation in our budget audit practices, not our internal audit.
So to that point, there's typically, I think we always did every 3 years. And again, as a board, you have the ability to create district-specific policy, which drives certain things like you're talking about. Yes, in New Richmond, we had a 3-year cycle. So we would put the audit out for bid. And then we would get it, put it out for bid, and sometimes we had the same, auditor, sometimes we didn't. It's a good practice. Some of the other things that you may be alluding to might be in our, overall handbook, with internal, but yes, with external, we can always create more or different policy, to help guide some of those things.
Those are all ones I have.
Okay, anything else? That's all? Anybody else? Okay. Next is the approval of the agenda. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Motion is made by Chuck. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Steve. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carried. Next is our open forum time frame with our community. So you guys have, is this where this is going to be at for these guys?
In consent, we'll
In
talk
consent?
about, yep,
Okay, I wasn't sure where you were. All right.
unless they want to speak right now.
You want to speak now?
About a different matter.
Nope, okay. All right. Next up is our consent agenda, and we have the items that are listed there. Is there any clarifications or questions in any of the areas, or any items that we'd like to be pulled to the side for later discussion?
I'm curious about item N.
So since we have guests in, and that's why our guests are here, I would like to take the time. So this is, in consent, is the approval of wrestling mat donation by Cody Bonte. Mr. Bonte and his family are here tonight to outline. This is not a small donation, and I think the wrestling community and the wrestling accolades over the years speak for themselves. The previous coach is actually our interim principal, so it speaks to the longevity of the program. We currently have one of our assistant coaches sitting here, which I am going to go off script and have him, because this was an idea that they came. I want to outline, here is the what they're looking at, and this is an overall wrestling, and as you know, we moved our wrestling room up to the mezzanine area to make room for the weight room that fulfills our community needs. And with that, we've made some changes to that with padding and so on. What this will do will allow a cohesion in terms of mats. We had to kind of, I would say, put some various mats out, and they did a great job, and they can take them down and so on, but this is what this would look like. I think the more sizable piece is, here's the cost of that. And what's gonna happen here is that we're asking for approval tonight, which would then be donated to the school in this amount, thanks to Mr. Bonte. So with your approval of the consent agenda, that is the item there. Since they're sitting here, is there any, Mr. Bonte, that's a very sizable donation. So number one, we want to say thank you for, especially coming from a basketball coach to a wrestling. Thank you, our kids and program. It's a huge donation on your part, and just like to say thank you. I don't know if you guys have any. Mr. Miller, do you have anything as one of our assistant coaches?
No, I think it's great when a community member steps up and, shows a little gratitude from where he came from, says it's kind of the ultimate thank you of, hey, thanks for what the sport gave me. Now I'm going to give back to the sport. It's huge. And it's going to make our program, our building, our facility look much greater than what it does. It already looks pretty great, but now it's just another level higher. So I'd like to say thank you to the coach as well.
I don't have a picture, but, and the wrestling coaches and the program did a great job of piecemealing different mats. But when you go back and you see this, I think it's going to speak volumes again. And again, I think you can see by the price tag, this is no small donation, which will help our program. So, Mr. Bonte, thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you very much.
It's incredible.
I'm absolutely flabbergasted. It's very, very generous and appreciated. Absolutely.
Can't wait to get beat up by the boys on it.
And we have a proud mom and dad sitting in the audience too. So again, thank you to the Bonte family for this generous donation, and we appreciate the support.
Yeah.
We'd love to have lots more community members just like you. I know we do, but even more. So thank you again.
That's definitely a problem.
Well, we haven't approved it yet.
That program and the coaching, it made him what he is today. I could be prouder.
That's great. And then isn't that really the most important thing of what, we strive to do here is, make grown-ups out of these kids, It's one thing to make them into great wrestlers, which you do, but to make them into great human beings is the ultimate goal, so. Yeah, wonderful job you too as well. Thank you.
Definitely. All right. Okay, are there any items on the consent agenda that need further clarification, discussion, or pulled for later review?
I just want to outline a couple of them, if that's okay.
Sure.
A lot of them speak for themselves. I do want to outline and we talked about it before, but the grant that Ms. Spaeth applied for, transition readiness grant of $80,000. This is going to be quite the undertaking, but also she's already taken steps of visiting area districts to get to in terms of ideas and budget and so on. And we'll talk more about this and she will present to the board. This just starts the process. So kudos to Erin Spaeth and her ability to write this grant and bring it to Glenwood City, as it's going to certainly make a difference, similar to what Mr. Bonte did tonight, make a difference with population of our students to help with job skills and pay for a variety of things to give our students kind of a real world experience. And I won't let all the details come out as she will present here in the near future, but again, kudos to Ms. Spaeth. The other thing I just wanted to point out is obviously with the recent resignation, we needed to split up the position. So you are creating, and again, I put a lot of stuff in the consent because we have a budget and annual meeting, which took us a while, but part-time mechanic, and I just wanted to publicly state that for us to get, this is not a full-time position, and I don't even know if it's a part-time position, so we actually put it as a hourly position, just to understand what our fleet is, what requirements we need, and so on. So just understand for us, that is the rationale behind it. Again, I think the rest speak for themselves, unless you have any other questions. Actually, I have one more I want to thank you to Jamie. This Act 20 required literacy training. Please note that that was a requirement, and our staff were trained, and based on legislation, we had to address and have a couple of new teachers trained. So if you look at that recommendation, it outlines a stipend for their time that is above and beyond the regular classroom. I guess now, is there any other questions?
Any no questions? All right. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So move.
Motion's made by Chuck. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Steve. All those in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Motion carried. Next up is business actions and items, and A is the approval of the Timothy J. Johnson legal counsel recommendation.
All right, before we move on, again, thank you, Bonte family, for coming tonight. We appreciate everything you did.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank
More
you.
welcome to stay.
Yeah, it's the real boring part.
Thank you very much, Rosa.
Thank you very much.
Okay, for this item, this is a couple things that I wanted to outlined in this. Number one, I received a subpoena. And so talking with the DA, Tim Johnson has not agreed to the plea agreement, which means we're going to trial, which is happening July 21 through the 23rd this coming year. With that, I do have a recommendation in terms of legal counsel. Unfortunately, this is not a cheap item, but from a standpoint of going in, because we are considered the victim in this case, I am recommending legal counsel be present along with myself, and for the variety of reasons that are outlined there. Ultimately, it's your decision on that. I did outline in this document what the cost would be roughly. And so that's, again, a question that I would have, so I put that on there. Is there any questions on the recommendation itself?
Does this cover all like pretrial prep as well?
No, this would actually be only the trial. And at this point, again, you guys saw my communication, it gets a little bit interesting because at this point, I am the only one that is subpoenaed for prosecution. But then there is a list of former employees and then one current employee, and that is Dr. Kaiser on the other side. And so we talked about how that would be in terms of representation and would she have access to legal counsel because, and again, she has no decision on if she's subpoenaed by Tim. So she would have the same right as far as pretrial discussions and so on. I sent correspondence out to staff just because in any type of trial, whether it's custody, et cetera, we want to make sure our staff are always prepared going into those situations. So to your question, Mr. Bartz, no, that does not include pretrial discussions. And I will say, maybe the plea agreement will be taken prior, and this might not be a cost. But if it is, I'd rather get it on the books for Trevor to make sure that he is prepared and it's on his schedule.
Any further questions? So I'll entertain a motion if anybody is so inclined.
So moved.
Motion's made by Steve. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Jordan. Again, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carried. B is the approval of a Fund 80 bus purchase of 1222 and transfer to Fund 10 for audit correction.
So we've talked about this quite a bit. Long story short is it's reflected in this current school year. This is where a bus was inappropriately purchased by Tim Johnson using Fund 80 monies, which you cannot do. And to make the situation right in terms of our books, Deb and I have worked with not only the audit firm, but also I've had numerous conversations with DPI. And so with that, this signifies that for record purposes that the board is in favor and acknowledges this correction financially for the district.
Questions? All
So the
right.
money that was spent out of Fund 80 is now being transposed to where it should have been.
But the entry puts revenue back in Fund 80.
That's a fund,
It's actually,
fund 80.
it's being recorded now as a purchase from Fund 80 to Fund 10. Fund 10 is buying it from 80.
So there's really not any transaction being made per se, like Deb's giving me $20. The transactions are happening within the books to verify that it was a mistake, should not have happened because it was inappropriate funds that purchased the bus. Now it puts it back in Fund 10 where it should have been. And again, it's somewhat semantics, but it also is so the books are proper and we can sit here in good faith and answer the questions that our books are where they need to be. And we are purchasing items correctly using the correct funds.
So will it show a positive reflection of Fund 80 then?
It's an internal transfer more or less.
Cause it's all part of the general fund, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly,
Learned that.
right.
The one thing that needs to be taken into account is there's a depreciation, and buses depreciate pretty aggressively. And I think we have our own opinions on that, but yeah, just understand those numbers, because the next item I'm gonna talk about is a purchase of a bus. So when you see the numbers in the books, understand there is depreciation taken into it.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the Fund 80 bus purchase to Fund 10.
I'll make a motion.
Motion's made by Jody. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Scott. Any further discussion or clarification? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carried. Now is the lease versus buy quotes.
So we talked about the need, and I sat down with Ryan, and bottom line, we can probably live by one more year for the current bus fleet. By moving the bus that you just did allows us to not have that only used for activity, which is a big help, and it puts us into a fleet. We also had a bus that we just had to replace a solenoid over, bus 12, and so he feels, and I trust his opinion, that we would be able to live by. A more conservative approach would be to purchase a bus. My recommendation is that depending on how numbers shake out, if we feel that is a need, I would recommend that we actually go towards a bus lease, which more districts are actually utilizing because they can't come up with the capital required to purchase. So there's nothing that you need to do. It's just a matter of I'm updating you now on where we're at. If we can make it work, I would feel more comfortable leasing a bus. The question I believe Mr. Bartz asked last time was, what's the turnaround? If we were to purchase a bus tomorrow, we would have it here by December. The other correspondence in there that you will see is buses are going to be going up. Not significant, but you know what, 3,000 is significant enough. And so, again, from a conservative approach, which we did not put in the budget, so that would alter the budget. I just need some direction from the board based on what you feel. Unfortunately, now, I'm more inclined to say I would like to see that approved, next month because of the fact, our bus mechanic is no longer with us, and we have one individual that I'm meeting with tomorrow, but we don't have the door beaten down by individuals with that type of expertise. So, again, that's all the facts. I guess I'll entertain any questions that you may have. And then your thoughts. I just need some direction.
Do we know what the total difference of like total cost of ownership is between the two? You know, buy versus, buy with depreciation factored in versus, a 3 or 5 year lease?
If you look at, I put in there the quote. I don't know the answer to that. It really comes down to, we're looking at a 71 passenger bus that is gas. And again, I'm going off a recommendation of Ryan, who I have a lot of respect for. From a standpoint of bus sales, this kind of talks about the annual payment. And again, more districts are going this route, just because they find their fleets where they have to be kind of on an annual basis like in over 3 years of trying to replace. And because of the cost of the bus, it used to be it was 80 grand.
Mhm.
And now when you're talking 130,000, it's a little bit harder to come up with those funds. So leasing is a reasonable. I think we can try it. And then if we don't like it and we see some drawbacks from it, but it would put another bus in our possession, which we do have one that this is going to be the last year. Now, is that worth it to say 3,000? Yes, I would say, because of the fact that Ryan is also not with us and we just don't have that fill at this time. So
Is
you're-
there a leaning towards a gas or diesel? What do you
Gas.
recommend?
Gas.
Okay.
So we cannot go to a 76 passenger because it doesn't fit in the bus barn. So it has to be a 71. The gas is more of a, different drivers say different things. But the standard, or the industry now is leaning towards, propane or gas, for a variety of reasons. And I know, Chuck knows this with his operation and business. But even Ryan, just from the cold winters that we have here, diesels just provide so much of a hindrance. They're just harder.
Mhm.
Well, and a lot of it is with the current emission statutes, diesels aren't reliable anymore. It used to be the strong, sturdy, reliable
Yes.
diesel. It's the opposite is the case now.
DEF systems and stuff.
DEF systems, and the higher cost of maintenance, takes 3 times as much oil when you change the oil on a diesel bus. Those kinds of things add up over the life of the bus, so.
Sure.
And yeah, it used to be the gas engines were very poor and no power. Yeah, that's not true anymore. So,
What is typical service life of a bus if you buy it?
Well, if you look at the other attachment there, the transportation inventory, I'll pull it up right here. You can see, we have everything from
2000?
So looking at the buses on some of the inventory, we've got buses that are 20 years old
yes.
and they're still fine.
Except for 11,
Right.
and that is one that we just have had some problems with. But I think it's a combination of things. I think it becomes it's your mechanic and the ability to take care of things. Ryan is a Swiss Army knife. He was able to do a lot of different things, and being a mechanical engineer with the Navy and so on, I think he did a really good job of trying to get our buses. And he'd fix them ourselves instead of these massive bills of driving it to Eau Claire to these bus mechanics. I think, when you look at some of these, like Bus 9, we just have to start being on a proper rotation with that. And so, again, I'm looking at direction for next meeting. I do have a conference call with them tomorrow just to kind of give them an idea of where we're at. But you can see the price point is going to change based on tariffs from what they've told us.
Who, in leasing the bus, did they assume all mechanical costs for that bus during the term of the lease?
No, I do not believe so. Those are some questions. Because I have to fill out the credit process, and so those are some of the questions that I have to ask. Basically, we talked about this last time or a couple times, and then try to put these numbers together. So those are definitely some questions that I can ask.
Is it similar, like when you have to do warranty on it and things like that? So some of
I think
the
some.
warranties for a certain time frame?
General mechanical things aren't covered, but the higher end ones are, but I can get those in more detail. This is, what you see is what he sent me. Boyceville has gone to a variety of leases in more recent time, and they have a full-time transportation person. Like, that's his only job. Ryan would agree, if you ask him, a full-time person here is not needed. Plus, we're working with possible, maybe across the street with some of the mechanical oil changes and so on. You can't beat some of the prices that local businesses do oil changes. For example, I talked to a couple different trucking businesses, and they can't even change oil with their own mechanic for what Mike's Auto Body can, because of all and so forth. So there's a lot of discussions going on because of our situation, but from a bus standpoint, yes, I think, again, between tariffs and where our bus fleet is and where our job opening is, I think it would be in our best interest to lease.
I think I would recommend to get just a little bit more info on what that lease looks like.
Yep.
And the requirements of us versus what they will take on.
And then try to finalize by next meeting.
Right.
Yeah, especially if we have the financial total cost of ownership too, so I think that'll help with what we gain out of depreciation on the purchase, right? Because I think that overall may make purchasing more cost effective, right?
Scott, what was your specific question?
Mechanicals, if they
Oh,
are
yes.
Well, there was that.
included with that.
I lost my train of thought there. I mean, I was just crunching some numbers over here on leasing versus owning. And it's about 4 times more to lease than it is to own, based on a 20-year service life of the vehicle. If this were is this a temporary fix to get one new bus in the fleet for the next 3 years or so? Or is this something we're looking at long term?
Both. For me, it is a temporary in terms of to come up with a capital of $140,000 in this budget for one bus is a stretch in my mind until we can really figure out a proper strategy on how we're going to replace them. I am taking the approach too that more districts are using this. I don't know what resource you're on, but I'll get those details as far as what is the cost of leasing. I do know that, especially gas buses, because they're fighting a new industry in terms of propane too, which is our different companies. So they're trying to make themselves more profitable, but also accessible. So I'll get the details, and we have a little bit of time here. But I want to make sure that, again, my goal is to always have these discussions 2-3 times, especially with this amount of money that's needed.
Okay.
So there is no action, I just need,
Just direction.
Yeah.
Mhm.
because if you just told me I don't want to even hear it, then I don't put it on the agenda for next month. But I'm not hearing that, so. Okay.
So item D is the approval of the contracted snow removal recommendation.
So we, is anything showing up on yours?
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about this, end of last year. And, basically I sat down with Harvest Hills. We reached out to a variety of individuals, and the only vendor that was willing to give us numbers was Harvest Hills. I met with them, and so basically it comes down to 3 options. And just a reminder, the reason that we even had this discussion was we're at the point, if you look back on the transportation fleet, we either need to start investing in snow removal equipment or look at contracting. And I think it was pretty popular in terms of let's at least get the numbers and look at what contracting is. So in front of you is the contracting summary. and I try to put it, into one document. So it comes down to a seasonal of 50,000, and that is not budgeted. We also have a per push price, which basically is the equipment sits here and we pay the cost of that equipment. And then they do the work for us. I think one thing you need to consider too is that it's manpower and person power to be able to operate this equipment and so on. So here are the prices about contracting, and what I need direction on is, again, are we more comfortable investing in capital equipment for the district in terms of a new plow truck? And I don't have that number. Or we look at contracting for 2 years. They would not go to a 1 year, which I understand. We do 2 years and then reevaluate with where we're at.
What are we using to plow it now? Just a regular truck?
We have a
And a
plow truck.
Bobcat, I assume?
Yeah, we don't have a Bobcat. We have kind of a UTV, and usually when it comes to again an individual, I think a lot of people have kind of just stepped it up. We've had people that are not necessarily supervisor of buildings and grounds, and I remember one of my Saturdays last year I was just plowing during a tournament. It gets to the point where, again, that truck is ready to go. And I think those of you that have seen it, know what I'm talking about. From a standpoint of unpredictable winters, if you look at the Farmer's Almanac, which people used to live by, I actually always look at it, but there's supposed to be a lot of snow this year, and we run into situations where we hardly get any snow. So I think the seasonal part is a little stretch. And again, they're looking at a minimum of 2 years. And based on our last conversation, the board wanted to see numbers of contracting, which they do a variety of business here in town. And then the other side of that is, at some point, maybe in the middle of winter, we could break down and need to invest in some capital. And I don't know, but I'm guessing a truck of that stature is not cheap.
Or many sectors, that's.
And a truck, trucks are
A
just.
350 with a new, I don't know, we could probably use the same plow. The plow seems to be good, but I think it's seen its better days with some of the electrical piece, but I think the other factor to keep in mind is the level of, even before I got here, I think there was quite a revolving door of custodial workers. And so you always have a chance of being down. Like last year, it was very rare that we actually had all positions hired. And then when you start taking away from that workforce to plow snow, it just adds another layer of part of the building not being clean. And so again, you can always make reverse decisions to go 2 years from this standpoint and see where we're at. I don't think it's a bad investment, especially if we're looking at trying to get our books still figured out.
For the seasonal, you're saying?
I'm saying the
Or just in
push.
general? Oh,
Yeah,
per push.
the per push. I think that gives you a little bit of flexibility, because we still have a running truck that we can still do. We are interviewing 2 for sure. We invited 3 to interview for Ryan's position this Thursday. And we have a couple I think, quality individuals that will interview, but again, when you take the totality of this information, I definitely, think the per push is probably a wiser solution for us at this point.
So basically you're saying we try to cover what we can with the truck and then pay per push if it's to a point where we couldn't.
Well, it's knowing that the truck is ready to go. And so, again, if you look at the per push, a lot of the capital on that is having the equipment here on site. And that's what they're charging us. And then the per push. So again, could we lease that equipment and have somebody run it? Probably. But I can't tell you at this time, are we gonna have an individual to the ability of Ryan? I just don't.
And we use Harvest Hill for ours, and he's there always on time, way before time. Like, I never had an issue where it hasn't been plowed.
I checked, because Doc, you have it, have it, I checked with other, and they're good.
They're very good, they're great workers. I guess for me is, it's just, I'm like, I was looking at a 2-year-old truck, 1 ton, big long box, for under 50,
For how much?
under 50. So I'm like, geez, 50, you can buy a truck, you can buy a couple-year-old truck for that. And that's a 1 ton.
Yeah,
So for me, I'm like, and I love these guys because they're excellent workers and they're there before we're at work, and I'm at work at 7 in. So they've got our sidewalk and stuff cleaned off.
yeah, I would actually advise against the seasonal. I think that's too much in my opinion, but the per push, 21,000 for the equipment, and then what would you charge if custodial was to do it, and the time and commitment, and that's what I'm taking into account. And so, again, do we have somebody on staff currently without Ryan that could run that type of equipment? No, we don't.
Let's hire Bob part-time in the winter.
So again, similar to the bus discussion, I think there's a different circumstance right now. And I don't want to hash it over, but we've been talking about this, and from a planning standpoint, I do need a decision.
Well, it seems like based on the numbers that I've been looking at with the per push, the seasonal is just so far outside the norm that it's not even considerable, since they say it's based on 33 to 35 incidents, and we haven't even had that many incidents in the past 5 years, let alone 1 year. So the per push financially makes sense, and we do it for 2 years. It gives us, it moves it down the field a little bit, and we can make decisions then based on what the market looks like as far as vehicles. Because like Dr. Lisa said, vehicles are extremely expensive. But I think one of the biggest things that we've run into so far has been the people, who is doing it. Like I stated in another meeting, I don't think the superintendent should ever be out plowing snow unless you really, really want to. It's great that you did, but I think your duties are more important on the strategic side rather than the tactical. So,
That instance was just because I'm the head basketball coach. We had a tournament here, and it was coming down, and we held the tournament. So
sure.
I wasn't watching my kid at the time, but I would agree. And to Scott's point, he had the number right, which is what they told us. Ryan's number is more of like 20 to 25 instances of snow in the last 2 years for data purposes. So I would agree. The 50 is not even, to me, it's not even considerable. The per push for everything Scott stated, that would be what my recommendation would be. And if you want to go and see the truck, I can show you. It's
I drove it, it's rough.
I know what it looks
It's rough.
like. I've seen it.
And that's 7 acres is a lot of asphalt.
It is.
Yeah, that's a lot of snow. So, I mean,
And not knowing, again, we have a major thank you to Ryan McVeigh for his 4 years. It's gonna be tough to replace it. We were very lucky. So to get somebody of his ability, it's gonna be, if we luck out again, that's gonna be great.
You know, I guess kind of where I'm landing personally is I'm okay with this. I think we could probably do it cheaper ourselves if we had the right equipment and the right people, which we don't. So like, for example, the next time we need to get a new tractor, we get one that is capable of having a bigger pusher on it to plow snow or something, or things like that. But those aren't happening right now. So this is an okay plan for me, interim, and then to be revisited in a couple of years.
I think to Scott's point, we're pushing it down the road just because, again, we don't have a proper plan in place. You know, it's very similar to computers, asphalt, roofs. We will have a plan in place of when do we replace these vehicles. Well, just last year, we had to replace 2 16-passenger vehicles because they were illegal. You know, those are things that it's just gonna take time to build that proper plan. And this at least gives us some flexibility to do that.
Let's just hope we don't get that 53 inches we had like 3 years ago.
Yeah, more like 2 years.
Yeah, the last
Yeah.
2 years will be fine. For sure. All right, so is everybody okay moving forward and looking at option 1, the per push scenario? Is what I'm hearing, correct? Okay, all right. So,
And sorry, Dr.
Go ahead.
Kaiser, one thing that I wanna make sure it's outlined is per push means per storm.
Mhm.
It's not, you know, he's not gonna sit here and be like, well, it's 24 hours, we're gonna try, he's like, it's a storm. And sometimes we get those day-and-a-half storms, and
Gotta
again,
come out a couple times.
to Jody's,
Mhm.
you know, acknowledgement, yeah, they do a great job with customer service, so I just wanted to outline that.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the contracted snow removal with option 1 on the per push basis.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made by Steve and seconded by Scott. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no, motion carries. All right. I have more communication here. Glenwood City School District, thank you for letting us host our Miss Rodeo Wisconsin pageant fashion show in your gym/auditorium on Saturday. We had a great afternoon of fun and dancing. It was nice to have a change of scenery for the fashion show. And this was signed by Miss Rodeo Wisconsin pageant with a bunch of signatures on there, and says also thank you for letting us read to the summer child care program. All right. Next we have our scheduled meetings. Now, next month is the facility one, you said, correct? And we're starting at 5:30 with that?
Yep, so if you look at the calendar,
And that's on the 13th.
so our next meeting is on the 13th, and typically we started off by taking a tour. However, that's when I have CISA coming, and it will be just me and the board. I would have had Ryan, but he's not here. But CISA is going to start the evening off and present the audit, the full audit to you at that time.
Okay. And then we have the WSB regionals.
So just a quick, I sent out a reminder, the regionals are there, and again, if you're interested, just let us know, we'll get you a school vehicle and you can take it. The other one is the WSB, if you plan to go, please let us know. However,
You're not gonna do that.
I'm not gonna be, I wouldn't have been there anyway, because, I've been coaching. Number 2, I'm gonna be at the trial. at that time, so keep that in mind. I am going to send an administrator in my place because it's a great opportunity and Ms. Schaefer and I have yet to have that discussion if it works in her calendar. But we sent Ms. Spaeth last year and she was your tour guide. This is my last year of coaching, so I will be done doing that and I'll be able to go. But obviously a bigger wrinkle is the trial if you have interest in that too.
All right.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Go
and if
ahead.
you do, we need to know for hotel. Not necessarily you have to commit to going, but the hotels really fill up fast and we have 6 rooms. So if you are a for sure no, please let us know and we'll cancel those rooms to get them back into the mix for other districts. And you don't have to let us know now, just tomorrow or send us an email or text.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment of the meeting.
I'll make that motion.
I was like, nobody was. I have Chuck, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Scott, all those in favor?
I
We are adjourned.
But you ever play a motion machine tonight?
I
I like everybody's weights. It's about a 3 to 5.
Trying to share the love.